Hello everyone and welcome to another one of those games where everything that could have gone wrong does go wrong, and it's also from round 1 of the Tata Steel India Blitz section, Nihal Sarin versus Hikaru Nakamura, and interestingly there are no 2800 players in this tournament, only 2700 players and 2900 players. Hikaru is 2909 and everyone else is 2700 something. So let's dive straight into it. There's quite a lot to enjoy here. It's a long game, but most of the game is just shuffling pieces around. So basically, it's the opening that's important and what happens in the end. So Nihal with the white pieces opens with d4. We have knight to f6, knight to f3. We have d5, sort of mixing it around, some sort of a queen's pawn opening, and now c3 and pawn to a5. Pretty much every other move has been played here other than a5, and this is what Hikaru plays. And it is now already as of move 3 that we have a completely new game. What's the point of a5, you might ask? Well, of course, it's to stop b4. So bishop to f4, going for a London setup. Bishop to f5, we have e3, e6, and now pawn to a3. White, of course, wants to advance the pawn to a4. c6, and now pawn to c4. We have knight b to d7 by Hikaru and knight to c3. We have bishop to e7 and h3 now. If you're not following the event or if you haven't seen the previous video, Nihal actually won the rapid section with 7.5 points. So he's now going into the blitz section of the event as the winner of the former event. Of course, once you accomplish that, everyone will have more respect for you and be more afraid of you when they're playing against you. So h6 with bishop to e2, and now d captures on c4, bishop captures and castle. So some very standard queen's pawn opening stuff here. We have castles and now knight to d5. Again, a nice idea, trying to trade off as many pieces as possible. And now bishop to h2. You want black to capture on c3, so you can capture b captures on c3. You do not want to capture with the knight or with the bishop. So bishop back to h2, and of course you don't want to allow knight captures on f4. b5 now, advancing the pawn, attacking the bishop, bishop d3, and here Hikaru trades, captures, and queen to b6 now. Developing the queen, connecting rooks. We have rook f to c1, and now rook a to c8. Maybe with some c5 ideas at some point. Queen back to e2, we have queen to b7 and knight to e4 now, going for that d6 square, as the bishop also covers that. Rook f to d8, and now the immediate knight to d6. Attacks the queen and the rook, so you have to trade here bishop captures, and pawn to a4. So now a bishop and knight versus two knights, it's hard to say which is better, but as all of the pawns are on light squares, the bishop is free to roam in between the dark squares. The bishop should be a little bit better here. So knight to d2, and now knight 7 to b6. We have bishop to c5 now, as the bishop was attacked on d6, and knight back to f6. We have rook to c2 and knight b to d7. We have bishop to e7 and rook to e8. And like I said, even though the bishop is better, maybe it's a little bit easier to play with the knights in a blitz game. Usually they say, okay, bishop is better than knight, and especially if it's an open game, then bishop is better than knight. But in blitz, knight is almost always better than bishop. So bishop captures on f6, knight captures, and rook a to c1. C6 pawn is a backwards weak pawn, so of course Nihal will now go after this pawn, and Hikaru has to defend it. We have pawn to e5. Hikaru tries to go for some tactics, and this should just lose him the game or give Nihal maybe a winning advantage, but Nihal misses it. He trusts Hikaru, and he plays knight to f3. The way to exploit this is to actually capture on e5, and it's funny because after captures and rook captures, there's knight to f3 with tempo, as now the rook is attacked, and it doesn't matter where you put the rook. Rook d5, for example, knight d4, and now this pawn will fall. That's the point, and you cannot advance it, as now the knight and the queen are attacking the b5 pawn. So that's the way to do this. But Nihal trusted Hikaru, knight to f3, knight to d7, and now d captures on e5. We trade everything in the center here, captures, and queen to f3. Again, going for that c6 pawn. Rook to e6, nicely defending, so you can see that now black has no problems defending this pawn. In the line that we've shown, there was no way to defend the pawn. We have rook to d2, now shifting the rooks to the open d file, queen to c7, and rook c to d1. We have rook to e7, rook to d6 now, very nice rook lift, and pawn to c5. Now Hikaru says he will push b4 and then try to create a passed pawn, as he does have a pawn advantage on the queen side. Queen to d5, now tripling up on the d file, and pawn to b4. We have queen to c4 and rook to b8 now. We have queen to a6 and b captures on a3. B captures on a3 and queen to c8 now, offering a queen trade. But queen captures on a4 and now pawn to c4. Hikaru sacrificed one pawn so he can start advancing his passed c pawn to victory, which is very hard to deal with, especially in Blitz when you have a little time on the clock. So rook to d8 with check, and also by playing c4, Hikaru offers a queen for two rooks, which you should never do. But for some reason, Nihal thought that it's a good idea, and maybe even because it's Blitz, maybe it's hard to coordinate the queen and the two rooks, and he goes for it. Rook to d8 with check. Queen captures, rook captures, and now rook captures on d8 and queen captures on c4. So two rooks for the queen, plus Nihal grabs the passed pawn, and now it's queen and the passed a pawn versus the two rooks. But of course, the rooks only need to double up, and the pawn will be won. So that pawn doesn't really exist. So rook to a8, we have pawn to a4, and now just rook e to a7. Now Hikaru will win the pawn. g4, and now pawn to h5, trying to mess up the pawn structure. King to g2, and now rook captures on a4. We have queen to d5, h captures on g4. Now if you capture, the rook will capture also, so pawn to h4. And now it's going to be very hard to prove that the queen can do anything here against the rook. So rook 4 to a6, queen to e4, and now rook to d8. We have pawn to h5, and now Hikaru goes for rook to h6. Rook to f6 was much stronger. It goes after the f2 pawn, and it's not easy to defend this. Point is that after queen b4, stopping rook d2, you will play rook d5, going after the pawn, and now it doesn't matter what you do here. If king g3, let's say rook f3 check, king captures, rook captures on f2, the white king is now wide in the open. Black will be well, quick to win this game. So after h5, Hikaru goes for rook to h5, and now, okay, queen captures on g4. Now it's not as bad. Rook back to f6. Now he's going for it, but now Hikaru just goes for queen b4. He stops rook to d2. Nihal stops rook to d2. We have rook to d5 by Hikaru going after the h5 pawn, and queen to b8 with check. King h7. Queen to b1 with check, and king to h6 now. Even this is possible. Pawn to f4, and now rook captures on h5. So now the two rooks will try to harass the white king. Queen to b8, and now king back to h7. We have queen to b1 with check, rook to g6 now. And f5 doesn't really do anything, since once white makes a move after check, f5 doesn't really do all that much, but black stops it with pawn to f5 either way, because it might be a bit problematic. So here, queen to b4, we have rook to h3 with check, king to e2, and now rook to e6, putting pressure on the e3 pawn, and now Nihal is in a really bad situation. Queen to c5 was played, now rook h captures on e3, and now you cannot give the queen back for two rooks. If you do this, then the position is completely winning for black. The two pawns will overcome the white pawn. So instead, after rook captures, king to f2, and now we have rook to e2 with check, king f1, and now king to g6. Sorry, king to g6. Now Hikaru merely has to figure out how to defeat the white king in the most in the simplest of ways. But as you'll see, that's easier said than done. We have queen to g1 with check, king to f7, and now queen to a7 with check, rook to e7 blocking, and queen to c5. We have g6 by Hikaru, and now queen to d5 with check. King to g7, queen to d4 with check, king to h7, and queen to f6. Now we have rook 2 to e4. going after the f4 pawn with check, king to g2, and now rook to d7. Now this pawn is defended. Maybe you can even checkmate the white king here. Queen to c6, and now rook to d2 with check. We have king to g3, and now the position is completely winning for Hikaru, but he first has to hide his king. He has to put the king to safety. Instead, he goes rook to d3 check right away, and incredible as it is, the position is a draw now. King to h4, and there's no way to win this. Look at this. If you try king to h6 now, there's the spectacular queen captures on g6 with check, and after king captures, this is now stalemate. So, yeah, of course, Hikaru will not fall for that, but there isn't anything else to try. If you play rook captures on f4 with check, just king g5, and again, it's a draw. Now, the black king is even close to getting checkmated, and if you try something like rook g4 check, king f6, there's no way to continue. If rook to e4, just queen to c7 with check, and you might even lose the game here. King h6, queen to h2 check, and you get checkmated. That's just the way it is. You have to give up both of the black rooks, and that's checkmate. So instead, after king h4, rook to d1 was played by Hikaru. Now comes king to g5. Rook d to e1 doubling up, and now queen captures on g6. King h8, we have queen to f6 with check, king to g8, and now queen to g6. Repeating the position a little bit. King f8, queen captures on f5. Now Nihal wins that pawn. Now he again has a passed pawn, and he will try pushing it. So king to g8, we have queen to g6 check, king to f8, queen to f6 check, king to g8, queen to g6 check, king to f8, queen to d6 check, king to f7, and now queen to d5 with check, king g7, queen to d7 check, rook to e7, and now queen to d4 with check, king to f7, and only now pawn to f5. So you will be able to push f6, attack the rook. Also, the queen from d4 guards g1, so there are no checks here. Rook to e8 by Hikaru, queen to d5 with check, king to f8. We have king to f6 now, threatening checkmate with queen to f7. And here, Hikaru played rook 1 to e7. But now the position is completely winning for Nihal, but you have to find the correct idea. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Nihal while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting that black is in complete Zugzwang. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move is queen to c5 or d6. It's only important to put the queen on this diagonal. So queen to c5, this is what Nihal played. And it was in this position on move 87 that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. He cannot move anything. If you move this rook, then queen captures on e7. This rook cannot move at all. And of course, if you move the king, then that's also a problem. Just queen captures on e7, rook captures, king captures, and you are now free to advance your passed pawn to victory. So truly a spectacular game. Nihal went for a very odd decision, but seemingly it might be the best course of action in a Blitz game. Like it might be easier to coordinate the queens, but I always imagined it would be easier to coordinate the two rooks in short time control. But yeah, here he defeats none other than the speed demon Hikaru Nakamura, which is absolutely incredible. And he was lost. He was dead lost for the entire game, but he just persevered and came out on top. Incredible stuff by Nihal, and what a position to end the game. Queen c5, absolutely spectacular. Something you would print out and put on your wall, or on your refrigerator, or on the back of your car. Really a spectacular position. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you have any other games that you would like to see, feel free to use #suggestion. Many of them are being played, so I will go over them. I already have one that I really enjoy, so I will do that one next, but feel free to suggest. So once again, really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Stefan Trifunovic, Andrej Shrade, Mitsutaki Gamiese, Zoltan Sarkari, and Eric Adams for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Tata Steel India Blitz edition until it finishes. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.